Hey everyone, so in the previous video I showed you how to use a plugin, a WordPress plugin called Gravity Forms to include forms on your website. Gravity Forms reduces the amount of time that you spend on integrating forms onto your website. Now, I'm assuming a lot of people are thinking, hang on a sec, we're doing a WordPress theme development series and you're showing me how to buy and use a plugin. Yes, I concede that I'm showing you how to use a plugin and it is purely to save you time. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a form by hard coding it yourself. Now, it is in no way going to have the same functionality as Gravity Forms, and it's not going to have a way to, right now, to store the data in the dashboard. It's purely just going to be a form that can be filled out and emailed to you directly as the administrator. It would be too long of a tutorial to show you how to do everything. So with that being said, let's get started. One thing you're going to notice is I have now upgraded to Visual Studio Code. It's a free editor made by Microsoft, and in my opinion is much easier, much better to use than Sublime Text. So I would suggest downloading that and installing it. And if you remember, our single-cars.php is the page where we had the Gravity form in. So we're just going to delete that now. And if we go back to our project and refresh, you should see now that form is gone. What we want to do is we want to create our own form. So let's go into our includes folder and create a new file, and we'll just call it form-inquiry.php, form-inquiry.php. Then go into where the Gravity form was before and do php get template part, and then we're going to point it to the includes folder. The first part of the file is obviously form, so it'll be form, and then the second part after the dash is inquiry, and close the tag. And then if we go into form inquiry and just type test and refresh it, you should see that test is located there now. Okay, so, oops, I clicked on the image. Okay, so the first thing we need to do basically is create the form. So we will just create a form tag. And we don't need to put an action or anything like that because we're going to be using jQuery to submit the form. And then we will just do, I'm going to use some basic Bootstrap for this. So we'll do div form group and make it a row so we can have two columns inside of it. And then we'll do div class col lg6. So it's going to make one row which is half the size. And inside that column, we will do input type equals text, name, so this will be the first name field, so fname, and the placeholder will be first name, and we'll make it required, so that's just going to give some in-browser validation. We'll copy and paste that, and then we'll make one which is lname, so last name, and then we'll copy the whole row, and we'll do email. So the name will be email, and it will be, the placeholder will be email address, and the type will be email. So we'll do HTML5 type. Tel will be the type for the phone, and then the name will be phone, and the placeholder will be phone. And then the last one would be the text area. So div form group. We'll do text area. And we'll just give it a name. So the name will be inquiry and the class will be form control. So I forgot to add that class to all the other ones as well. So just add the class form control if you're using Bootstrap, and that will give it the Bootstrap styles. Okay, and I'll give that required just in case you want to require that as well. All right, so let's save and refresh and have a look. Okay, so we have a form there. We can do a placeholder there for the text area as well. Oops, I'll get out of Sublime. So we'll do placeholder, your inquiry. And one more, we'll do another form group, and inside that form group, we'll do button type equals submit. And we'll just do send your inquiry. We'll give it some Bootstrap classes as well. So that will be class button success, and button block to make it full width. and then refresh, and there you go. So we now have a form there. Maybe if we put something here like an H2 or something, send an inquiry. There you go. And we can even just do like send an inquiry about PHP the field. Actually, we can do the title, and that will show the name of the page. Okay, so send an inquiry about Toyota Land Cruiser. First name, last name, email, phone, your inquiry. I'm not going to put labels, but yeah, if you want to put a label, you could just do this. And refresh it. And there you go, you got a label there. Okay, so I'll just remove that. So now that we have a form, we need to somehow make it submit to WordPress so WordPress can actually process and send the email. The first thing we need to do is give the form an ID so we can target it in JavaScript or in jQuery. We then need to go to the bottom of the form and create a script. And inside those script tags, we want to then create a listener for when the form is submitted. So we would do $ inquiry. So that's the ID of the form. And then .submit. And then we will run a function when it's submitted. And just to test it, we'll do alert hi. So we'll refresh now. And we'll try and submit the form. And nothing's going to happen. And you'll see that it did that post. So what's happened, if we go to our console, you'll see $ is not a function. And that is because typically we should be using jQuery like that for it to work properly. So if we try again, you should see now it will work. But what if we don't want to use jQuery every time instead of a $? What we can do is we can wrap a function around it. Okay, so I'll put it back to a $. And then I will create a function to wrap around it. So function, and then add the $ in there as an argument. And then within there, within that object, we will place the jQuery code. Oops. And then you need to just add at the end jQuery. So basically everything that's a $ will now be referred to or understood to be a jQuery function. Okay, cool. So let's try that now. Refresh, and we'll just, there we go. So now it works. Cool. All right, so I'll remove that alert. And now what we need to do is we need to firstly do an event prevent default. And what this will do is it will stop the form from submitting. If it does try to submit, jQuery will stop it so that jQuery can handle it rather than doing a standard post request. So if I just take that away and we go in and we type something in here, hit send your inquiry, you'll see that it will refresh the page. We do not want that to happen. So I'll just go in here, add event prevent default, refresh it again, and see what happens now. Still does it for some reason, so I will just check why. Actually, we need to put the event inside here as well. So now the function has the event and then event prevent default. There we go. Let's try it now. There we go. Okay, so now it won't submit. Now that means we can use this script to then post it to an endpoint that WordPress has set up, which is the WP admin-ajax URL. And it's basically an address that you can post Ajax to, and WordPress will know how to handle it. So to do that, we'll just create a variable called endpoint. And inside there, we will do PHP echo admin URL admin-ajax.php. And that will be the actual endpoint where it will be posting to. So if we do alert endpoint and I submit this form, it's going to post it to there. Okay, good. So now what we have to do is we need to grab all the values out of the form and serialize them. Serialize basically means we're going to grab all the fields that have been filled out and put them in one string, as opposed to having them in separate strings or separate sections. To do that, we can just create another variable. We'll call it form, and we will target the inquiry form again, and we will do serialize. And then I'll do a console log of the form, and you'll see what will happen. So we'll refresh. I'll type in my details, and I will open the inspector and hit submit. And if we go to our console, you should see that all the data comes through in a query string. So that's no problem at all. In order for WordPress to identify our post as a function, or to at least know what it's supposed to do once it grabs the post, we need to create an action. To do that, we will use the form data interface in JavaScript, or in JavaScript, and we will then send that form data to the endpoint. So let's create a new variable called form data, and we'll make it a new form data object. Then what we will do is we will do form data append action. So this is what WordPress looks for when we're making an Ajax post. And then we can call it whatever we want. I'll just call it inquiry. So basically what's going to happen is once the post is made to this URL, WordPress is going to go, okay, so what's the action name? And the action name is inquiry. And then what it will do is we'll try and find a function which matches that name. We haven't got to that yet, so I'll show you that shortly. So we've appended an action called inquiry so that WordPress can identify. And then we need to do form data append, and then we need to add the data from the form. So we can just call it, say, inquiry, and we'll then put the form inside of there. So remember how we serialize the form? So all the data's in one query string. We'll do that. So now it's going to send the action, and then it's going to send the data that's submitted as well. Once we've got that, we just need to do an Ajax post. We can do that by doing $.ajax. And then we need to tell it that it needs to post to this endpoint. So we can do endpoint, and then a comma, and then create an object. And within that object, we need to put some settings in there. The first one will be type, and that's going to be post. The data will actually be the form data. So remember, we created form data as a variable, and then we appended data to it. So we're going to use form data. We're then going to create a couple of callbacks, which one will be success function, and that will be if it is success, we can do something with that, with the request. So I'll just do that, and then we'll do error function error. Okay, so we've got our two callbacks. So if there's an error with the Ajax response, we can do something there. If it's successful, we can do something else. We also want to add two more options to this Ajax request. The first one will be process data, which is false. Process data is basically turning off any default actions by the Ajax request. If it does any manipulation to the data, I think it will turn it into a query string, but we already have turned it into a query string here, so we don't want it to do anything. And also we want to change the content type and make that false as well. So the content type is basically just telling what type of data you're sending, and the default is like application XWW form URL encoded. We're just going to turn that off completely because we are using form data. Okay, so we'll save that now. So now we have basically set up the JavaScript to make a post with our data to WordPress. It's going to be posting it to admin-ajax.php. And when admin-ajax.php picks it up, it then looks for a function to add to do something with that data. So to action it on the server side, we need to go in functions.php. Let's just go to the end here. and let's create a function which then we can manipulate the data that's been posted. So the first thing we need to do is just create a function. We'll just call it inquiry form. And then on top of that, we need to do two actions. We'll do add action, and make sure you copy this correctly. WP Ajax inquiry. Now WP Ajax is the hook, and then inquiry refers to that action that we created. So you have to have it in this format. And that way, what will happen is when that action is posted via the Ajax URL, it will find this and it will run this function. So add action and then comma, and then we just want it to use the inquiry form function that we've created. We also want to make it work for non-logged in users. So if you just did it like this, it wouldn't work if you were not logged in. But if you're not logged in, you also want to do the same thing and just do no priv, and exactly the same function it will run. Okay, and then just to test this, what we'll do is we'll do WP send JSON success. It works. So it's just going to send a JSON response, successful response back to our browser. And in our success function, we'll just alert the response. We'll do response.data, I believe. So let's try this out. So I'll just fill out the form, hit send your inquiry, and there you go, it works. So it has successfully allowed us to manipulate the form data in the function. Cool. All right, so now with that being said, what we can do is we can actually grab the post data. So to grab the post data, all you'd have to do is say, do something like this: data equals post. And we could just respond that data by just doing, sending the data through, we could maybe encode it, JSON encode it, and do a response with the data. So let's try that now and see what happens. There you go. So you can see that it's sent us back to the browser what we've actually typed in. Okay, so now that we have done that, first thing we need to do is we need to grab the information from the form so that we can put it in an email and send it to ourselves or to the administrator. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the data that has been sent through the form. To do that, we need to create a variable. So we'll just call it form data, and we'll make it a blank array. And then we're going to use a WordPress function, which is basically going to convert that serialized string of data into a PHP array. To do that, you just do WP pass str. The first argument will be the inquiry, or the string. So the string is actually this. So it would be underscore post inquiry. And then we're going to place it into our new form data variable, which we created. So form data. Okay, and if we want to respond, just to see if that works, what we could do is we could respond with form data, and then let's just look at a name that we used, fname, for example. Form data fname. Let's go back. We'll go back to the page. And I'll type in Sean. And we'll hit send your inquiry, and that should respond back with Sean. There we go. Great. So now we have successfully turned the string, the query string, into an array, which we can now use in our email. Okay, so now we need to find out who we are going to send the email to. So who are we sending the email to? We can create a variable called admin-email. Thanks, mate. And we can then use a WordPress function called get_option admin email. So this is going to grab the administrator email from the settings in WordPress dynamically. We then want to create the email headers. So email headers, and it is done in a few lines. So we'll create headers and make it an array. And the first one will be telling WordPress what the content type is. So the content type of the email will actually be text HTML. So it's an HTML email. And the character set will be UTF-8. Next thing we have to do is basically create that again, headers. So we're adding to the array, and we're going to tell it who the email is going to be from. So we'll do from, and we will then append the admin email. So that the email is going to be from the administrator's email address. Then we need to add another one, and we can do a reply to if you'd like to. You don't have to, but in this case, if you want to reply to the customer's email address or the person who's made the inquiry, you can do reply -to, and then you can just put the email of the person. So you could just do, it will be form data email, because if you go back to your form, that was the name of the field. So form data email. You can also do BCC. Sorry, I missed the S there. You can do a BCC. You can do headers equals BCC, and then do something like form data email as well if you wanted to do that, or you could even hard code an email in there if you wanted to. So now we've done the headers, we want to then tell the system who are we sending it to. So that's not right. This is the admin email address, okay? Now, who are we sending the email to? And we'll do send to, and because when someone fills out the form on our website, it is just going to go to our administration email address. We can just do admin email. Then what we can do is we can create a subject. So let's just do subject. Subject will just be a new variable. We call it subject, and we can do inquiry from, and then we need to just add in the variables. So the first variable will be the F name, the first name of the person. So dot form data F name, and then a dot to concatenate it, and form data L name. So basically it's going to come up like inquiry from Sean Freitas. And then we want to choose the message. So the message of the email will be in a variable called message. So we'll just create a blank one first, and then we can add to it. So we can do the dot equals syntax. So rather than hard coding every form field, what we can do is make it dynamic. We can do for each form data, which is the array of the fields, as field, and inside that for each we will do message dot equals, so it's going to add to this message, and then we can do field, and then maybe concatenate a BR, so a break, so that it doesn't just show everything on one line. We can also maybe put the field name, so rather than it just coming up with the name and the surname, we want to put labels, so we can do index, and we can grab the index of the array. So it would be, we'll make it a strong tag, index, close the strong tag, and then put the colon there, but it's not working properly. Why is that? All right, we need to put a dot there to separate it. Cool. And now that we have our email set up, we have our headers, we have the admin email, the recipient, we have our subject, we have our message, we then want to send it. So we're going to do it in a try catch block, and we can just do try. If WP mail, so it's basically WP mail is a function that sends the email, and inside there we're going to put a couple of variables. The first one will be who it's sending to, so we will refer to this variable here. The second one will be the subject, which is there. The third one will be the message, and the fourth one will be headers, which is there. And then if WP mail works, which usually returns with a true value, Then we can send back WP send JSON success email sent. So it will send back a success message saying email has been sent. It will send it to the browser in JSON format. Otherwise, if it's not successful, we want to send back an error. Email error. And then if there is a complete failure, we'll do a catch exception E. So we'll put the exception into the E variable. And then we'll do WP send JSON error E get message. All right, so this should work. Let's give it a try. So we'll refresh the page and I'll type in my details. Now, if it's going to work, you should see at the bottom here, Laragon will capture the email. So we'll hit send your inquiry. As you can see, the email has been sent and we can view the email here. And you'll see it's in just HTML format. But as you can see, the to was to Sean at Mr. Digital, which was the admin email. It was from Sean at Mr. Digital as well, but you'll see that it says it's from WordPress. So we can actually change that. To do that, just go back in and to your functions.php and just put a name there. So we could do something like my website. And then we need to put these arrows around the email address. So let's try that now. Okay, so I'm working on VMware and it's playing up a bit on me. So let's try it again. Okay, now it's playing up big time. All right, I fixed it. So we'll try it again. I'll type my name and my email, my phone number, inquiry. It should send. We'll open the email up and you'll see that it's now from my website. You'll also see all the data from the form. And the good thing about it is that we can actually add another field to our form without having to touch the back end. So let's go into our form on form-inquiry.php and let's just add the registration of the car like we did in the previous tutorial. So let's just do input type equals hidden. We'll make name equals registration, and then we can do value equals PHP the field registration. So let's go and refresh the page again. I'll type, it's playing up again. I'll just try and reload the page. There we go. So now the email should come with the registration of the vehicle. We'll view the email now and you'll see registration is there now with the rego number. So as you can see, they're coming through as F name, L name, all that sort of stuff. If you don't want it to be like that, just go in and change the names. You could make this first name. Now I'm not 100% sure. Now this is a bit rookie of me not to be sure, but I'm not sure if you can do a space. We'll just try it. So we'll just do, we'll have to refresh the page obviously. And we'll try it now. View the email. And yeah, well, yeah, you'll see that it's put an underscore automatically there. So yeah, you can't really have a space on your labels. Okay, so now what we can do, if once the form has been submitted, the browser receives a request saying that it has been successfully done. So what we can do in JavaScript is we can pop up a message and maybe reset the form at the same time. So let's go back to our form inquiry.php, and then in the success function, we want to, let's just say we wanted to hide the form. We could do $ inquiry, and maybe we'll fade it out 200. Okay, save it, refresh, go back, fill out the form, And you'll see now the form just completely goes away, and it will only come back if you refresh the page. Maybe you want to have a message there. So you could actually put a message here. We'll just create a new div and we'll call it ID equals success message. We'll give it a class of alert and alert success, which are bootstrap classes. And we'll just make it blank. We don't have to put anything in there. But then in our success function, what we can do is, actually before we do that, let's use an inline style to display none. So the message won't actually be there until we submit the form. So now in the success function, we could append some text into the success message. So we'll do success message text, thanks for your inquiry. And then we want to show it. So we'll do success message. Actually, we might even be able to just chain it. So maybe I'll just do show. Let's see if this works. So fill it out, send inquiry. And as you can see, what's happened is it did work, but it removed it hid the actual whole form. So we need to put the success message outside of this inquiry form. Okay, let's try that again. Refresh the page, fill out the form, hit send your inquiry. There you go. Thanks for your inquiry. And you also notice at the bottom that it actually sent the email as well. What if you want the message or the form to come back after a while? What you could do is you could fade it back in after a certain amount of time. So you could do fade in 500. And now I'm just being silly and mucking around with it, but there you go. So the form is gone. And it's come back, but it still has the information in there. So we just need to reset the form. So to reset it, what we could do is we could do inquiry, trigger, reset, and then refresh it again. Same thing. Send your inquiry. There you go. So it's reset the form, and it's also come with the success message. And you basically would do exactly the same thing with the error. So if there was an error on the website, you could make it by creating an error message here and doing exactly the same things here in jQuery. So that explains how you can send a form manually with WordPress. And as you can see, it is not straightforward at all. It's quite unfortunate because I do like WordPress, but I find the whole architecture of WordPress quite difficult to work with. And as you can see, it's taken quite a long time to build this form. That's why I always recommend a plugin for forms. I don't recommend plugins for everything, but forms definitely. If you have any questions, please let me know and I'll be happy to assist. And I hope you've learned something today. Thank you very much.